The story begins with a team of explorers in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean. On that ship was a weather officer named David, who reported the weather. They were heading towards an island that was located in the middle of the ocean. The government had sent David there so that he could observe the changing weather of that island. David had to stay there for about a year to collect weather data. After collecting weather data for a whole year, he was to return. David received a year's food and all essential supplies. After several days of sea travel, they finally reached the island safely. They went ashore there using a small boat. This island was completely desolate, where not even a bird could be seen. On that island, there was a lighthouse and a small house where David was to stay, because a weather officer named Robert had lived here before. But now his tour of duty was over. He had collected weather data while living alone on that island for a year. Now David would stay here for a year to collect weather data, and the old officer, Robert, would sail back with the ship. But when the team visited the house, they were stunned. There was no sign of anyone. In the room, the old officer's things lay scattered, so the captain and David thought someone might be in the lighthouse. Without delay, they headed there and saw a strange scene. The lighthouse was ringed with sharp wooden stakes, as if someone had sealed it on purpose to keep everyone out. The captain and David knocked on the gate again and again, but no one answered. At last they shoved it hard and went inside. In the lighthouse they found a man named Gruner. When they asked him about the old weather officer, Robert, he said, "He's dead. He went towards the sea, but never returned." Hearing Gruner's words, both David and the captain were shocked. "Come back, no." David thought if he gave the government an accurate island weather report, he'd earn a big payout. Then the captain gave him a gun for his protection. And the captain told David, "This place seems unsafe. Take care." They left him there and headed back. Now they'll return after a year. After the captain left, David made the house livable. After dark, he found a drawer diary from old weather officer Robert. That diary detailed much about the island. It also mentioned a mysterious creature, but not everything was clear. Some notes were incomplete. David read every line carefully. The diary also had strange animal sketches. David couldn't see why he made those pictures. Maybe loneliness, just killing time there. A diary page also held the old officer's wife's photo. David got tired of reading that diary and slowly fell asleep. Next morning, David began collecting weather data. But on reaching the sea, he stopped. He saw stones oddly arranged among rocks, with shells set between them in a strange pattern. David suspected Gruner resumed work. While working, he looked at the lighthouse with binoculars and saw someone with Gruner. But in a blink, they vanished. David looked again, then decided it was his imagination. That night, David was working when someone knocked at the door. He thought it might be Gruner after all. David called his name, but got no reply. As David moved towards the door with a lamp in his hand, some strange sounds, which were not human at all, began to echo in his ears. Then he saw the hand of a strange creature trying to get in from under the gate. It was not a human hand at all. Seeing this, David was stunned. He immediately dashed to the basement and hid there. Soon, the mysterious creature slipped into the house, searching for David while he watched it through a tiny basement crack. David's movement alerted the creature. It charged to kill him, reaching through a crack to grab him. To survive, David instantly seized a knife and drove it into the creature's eye. The creature screamed and ran away, but it could come back anytime. And it was confirmed in David's mind that what was written about the creature in the diary was true. He couldn't sleep all night out of fear. Next morning, David stepped outside and saw footprints in the sand, clearly not human. The tracks led straight to the sea and vanished there. Now David understood everything. Why Gruner had put pointed wooden stakes around the lighthouse. Now David knew that if I stay in this house, those creatures could kill me anytime. Panic. David runs to the lighthouse. "Open up. Let me in." Gruner. "No, you should have left with the ship." David returns, dejected. Gruner wouldn't even let him near the lighthouse. He doused him with water and told him to leave. Now David must act alone. He boarded up every window of the house with wood. He made a fence of sharp wooden stakes all around and placed old papers and books outside the gate. Then he sprinkled oil on them so that if the creatures came back, they could be scared away with fire. But there was one thing that David didn't know yet, and he was about to find it out tonight. Luckily, he found an old box indoors. It held a gun and ammo, giving him a little hope to live. As the sun set, fear grew in David's heart. Soon, darkness covered everything around. David sat quietly in a corner indoors, gun in hand, his heart raced. Just then, a strange sound was heard, and when David peeked through the window towards the sea, the ground seemed to slip from under his feet. He saw not just one, but many of the same strange creatures emerging from the water and heading towards him. Within moments, they gathered and tried breaking the door. David fired immediately, dropping creatures, some falling dead to the floor. David thought that after hearing the sound of the gunshot, they would run away in fear, but seeing their companions dying made them even angrier. Then David, adopting Plan B, sets fire to the papers and old books placed outside the gate. Seeing fire, creatures fled to sea in fear, but the same fire reached David's house. The door ignited, spreading slowly, because house was wood. David immediately saved his life by wrapping himself in a sheet and went outside to hide behind a large rock near the lighthouse. While filming creatures, David got a hand gash. Sudden downpour began. The fire slowly waned, but after a night of rain, David couldn't save his home by morning. The house was almost ash. To survive, he must take shelter in the lighthouse. He picked up his rifle, hid among the rocks near the lighthouse, and waited for Gruner to come to fetch water. When Gruner came out of the lighthouse to fetch water, David followed him. But then suddenly a strange creature that was near Gruner attacked David. But somehow, David managed to subdue it. That creature was Gruner's protector. When he was about to shoot it, Gruner immediately stopped David and said, "Stop, it's my pet." David held his fire and seized the moment, proposing to Gruner, "Keep the creature alive, letting me stay in the lighthouse. Otherwise, I'll kill it." Then Gruner agreed, since David had plenty of food and gunpowder. Before dusk, they both returned to the lighthouse with leftovers and slept soundly. The next morning, the creature was quietly licking David's hand. When David woke up from his sleep, he saw that his hand had completely healed because of the creature's licking. Seeing all this, David was stunned. He now wanted to learn more about the creature from Gruner, then reveal it to the world, for it felt like magic. David thought that if they revealed the secret of this creature to the world, both he and Gruner would earn a lot of money and fame. But Gruner didn't want any of this. He didn't want to leave this island. Gruner had no one left in this world now. For him, the island was perfect. He saw himself as a king, master of his will, so he rode all over the island. Gruner is king here, but David couldn't see how it became Gruner's pet. Gruner said he saved it. It accidentally snagged in his fishing net. Back then, the creature was small, and from that day it stayed with Gruner, obeying him. But Gruner was harsh, treating it very cruelly. Gruner had physical relations with this creature every day. Gruner said the creature once attacked him. In return, he punished her so harshly that afterward, she saw herself as Gruner's slave and obedient. You know why those creatures come ashore nightly? To free their companion from Gruner and take them back, but Gruner never allows it. Those creatures cannot attack in the daylight because the sunlight burns their skin. David didn't want to stay here anymore. He wanted to escape the island somehow. As evening fell, Gruner told him, "Be ready with the gun. Creatures could attack anytime." They prepared to switch on the lighthouse light. Soon, many sea creatures emerged and began moving steadily toward the lighthouse. Gruner kept firing. David was completely terrified. He headed into the lighthouse. Despite Gruner's warnings, he sat in a corner. Soon David fainted. Gruner fought creatures alone all night. Next morning, Gruner angrily splashed David's face, saying, "To live, you must kill them now. Otherwise you'll be thrown out of the lighthouse and obey my You must fetch water daily, handle lighthouse chores, and stand night guard with me." David had no other choice, so this became his duty. David now began to obey Gruner's every command, but there was one thing he did not like at all. that was physically torturing the female creature in different ways every day. Night falls. They ready for guard duty again as creatures rise from the sea. But today David wasn't afraid. He opened fire. But today, Gruner did nothing. He left David outside, shut the lighthouse gate, and sat silently, letting David learn to fight these creatures himself. Fighting through, David endures the night, and dawn comes. At dawn, Gruner found him bloody. Outside the lighthouse, he had learned how to fight these creatures. Time passed the same way, battling them at night and running Gruner's lighthouse by day. This island had now become like a closed house for him. He constantly thought about when he would leave this place and breathe freely. Eventually, David befriended the creature. He pitied her. Now he saw how hard it is to live alone after leaving your people. Perhaps creature felt the same. David named her Anarius. Days passed. Then one day, they saw the creature's attacks easing slowly. David thinks maybe they go somewhere else in the winter, or perhaps they realized that they would gain nothing by fighting these two. But Gruner told him that was not the case at all. They will attack again. Now they are increasing their numbers. Days passed. One night after dinner, Kroner and David played chess. But this is where Kroner slipped badly. Completely absorbed in the game, they forgot to switch on the lighthouse lights. Using the darkness, the creatures attacked them. David saw that the number of creatures was so high that even two people together couldn't fight for long. And this time, they had no plan. They were almost out of bullets. Somehow, they dodged and reached the lighthouse top. Meanwhile, Kroner took a deep leg wound. Today, the creatures overpowered them. Both thought death was certain today. Fortunately, dawn breaks. As the sun rises, the creatures leave the lighthouse and go back to the sea. After the scorching sun came out, Anarius tried to heal Kroner's wound. But by now, David had realized that they couldn't win this fight against these creatures. The bullets are also about to run out. They don't have enough food to last much longer either. Luckily, next day, David was outside the lighthouse when he spotted a ship. He ran in, grabbed a flare gun, went to signal, but Kroner stopped him because he didn't want David to leave. At that moment, Anarius attacked Kroner. She wanted to save David from Kroner. Kroner didn't want to let anyone leave the island. This island was his own world where he lived like a king. He didn't want David to leave either. After being alone for so long, he now had someone to talk to. And if David went back on that ship, he would go and tell everyone about Anarius and Kroner. So David can't leave now. Slowly, the ship vanished into the sea before him. He had nothing to do. More days passed. Kroner was still mistreating both David and Anarius, but he would especially hit Anarius, which David absolutely couldn't stand. One day, David gifted Anarius a small toy boat that he had made from a fishbone. But when Anarius saw the boat, she took David to a corner of the island where there was a real boat. When David asked Kroner about the boat, he said yes. He already knew there was a boat in this part of the island. Kroner says that some people came to this island by boat to save their lives, but none of them survived until morning. The creatures killed them all. They were all hauling ammo on the ship, but a storm at sea sank it just off this island. Hearing this, David instantly got an idea himself. They had something like a diving suit. David said that if one of them wore the suit and went to the part of the sea where the ship sank, they might find some bullets or dynamite, which would make it easier to fight the creatures. But Kroner refused to agree. But David was ready to do it, risking his life. Days passed. He and Anarius grew close. David began to really like her. Kroner secretly saw the two of them being romantic. Kroner felt that Anarius would be taken from him, so he would have to get David out of the way. The next day, Kroner himself agrees to David's suggestion. He tells David, "Okay, you will wear the suit and go down into the water and collect a lot of RDX there. Then I will pull you up with the boat." But Kroner meant something else. He wanted David to help him bring the boxes of dynamite from the bottom of the sea back to the surface, and then leave him alone in the sea so the creatures would kill him. This way, he would get the dynamite, and Anarius would become his slave again. They both took a boat to where the ship had sunk. Then David put on a dive suit and descended beneath the sea. After descending, David saw the ship utterly wrecked, but luckily he found several boxes of dynamite. Then, suddenly, some creatures appeared right before. Seeing the creatures, David panicked and fell. His diving suit was so heavy he couldn't move, and he couldn't signal Kroner up above. Kroner thought the creatures had killed David, but actually, they were just two kids. David somehow managed to leave his diving suit there and get himself to the surface. There, they found some old boxes containing dynamite. Then they got to work, laying 2 layers of dynamite around the lighthouse, so the next attack would wipe out monsters in one blast. Months passed. Winter snow arrived. Then, the creatures vanished. Their attacks suddenly all stopped. It was as if the creatures had been informed that a trap had been set for them. That's why they weren't attacking anymore. Kroner suspected Aneris had warned the creatures, so he began torturing her, but David stopped him. Together they made a new plan. Leave the lighthouse's main gate open, and when the creatures came near, blast them all with dynamite, ensuring none escape their deadly trap. David cleverly told Aneris to scream from the top of the lighthouse. Hearing Aneris's voice, all the creatures became enraged. Seeing the lighthouse's main gate open, the creatures thought it was a perfect chance to free Aneris. It was actually a trap set for them. In moments, creatures rose from the sea, headed straight for the main gate, and attacked David the instant they got inside. David stands firm, fights back, and breaks. As soon as all the creatures reach the lighthouse, Kroner presses the dynamite lever, but there is no blast. David had unplugged it, and Kroner forgot to reconnect it. David then sprints upstairs and starts wiring the dynamite. By then, the creatures were scaling the lighthouse. Only Kroner, alone, held them back. As soon as the connection is complete, David blows up the first layer, which kills many creatures in the blast. But monsters still attack the lighthouse. So Gruner blasts the second layer too. Both are knocked out cold by the blast. The next morning, when they came to, they saw Aneris was gone. Dead creatures ringed the blast site. Gruner was killing all injured survivors. Then David notices a necklace hanging on one of them. Seeing the creature rot, he pities it and realizes his mistake. The creatures they had considered ferocious until now were also like humans. They just couldn't speak. But for Gruner, all this was nonsense. After that day, the creatures never attacked again. But daily, cries rose from shore. Until now, David didn't realize the damage he'd done. Many families shattered. Children lost loved ones over a misunderstanding. The next day, David saw young of those sea creatures in the water, all together orphaned. David made a circle of stones and placed the small toy boat in the middle of it so that Aneris would see it and return. David waited hours. Aneris never returned. After waking in the morning, David saw Gruner asleep. Beside him were old things, including an old photo. The moment David looked at it, he was stunned. The girl whose photo he had seen on the first day in former Officer Robert's diary was none other than Gruner's wife, and Gruner was standing with her in the photo. Robert lived. He's Gruner, renamed to never leave this island. Seeing all this, David also gave up hope that he would ever be able to leave this island. Next evening, David at the shore saw that the boat once placed in the circle was now gone. In its place stood a creature's small child, holding the boat. David threw the burning piece of wood he was holding into the middle of the circle to show that he had no intention of fighting, and so that no one would feel threatened by him. He wanted to be friends with them. Soon, Aneris rose from the waves, followed by the whole group of creatures. But this time, no one attacks David. They all want peace now. They only sought a safe place for their children. But just then, Gruner shows up, holding a gun. He thinks if there's peace, how will he feel superior to anyone? David tries to explain these creatures don't want to fight. They seek peace. But Gruner ignores everyone. He shouts to Aneris, "Get inside." But for the first time, Aneris defied him. No longer he is made. Seeing this, Gruner senses his rule over the island is now completely. Gruner began feeling weak inside, as no one obeyed him anymore. In anger, he headed for the lighthouse. David thought maybe Gruner now understood that every creature wants freedom. No one wants to live enslaved, but that kinship obsession wasn't leaving Gruner anytime soon. Upon reaching the lighthouse, he fired a flare from signal gun that struck a creature's infant, killing it instantly. All the creatures fled in fear, and Daenerys lost trust in David. Enraged, David races to the lighthouse to punish Gruner. David starts fighting him. Why did you do this? They only wanted peace, but Gruner grew so violent he decided to kill David. As he swung an iron rod at David, David called him by his real name and said, "Stop, Robert, you're not a killer." Hearing this, Gruner froze. Robert wasn't like that. After arriving on this island, isolation wrecked his mental health. Loneliness, his wife's death, and deep depression had shaped him into this. Not a killer, a good man. Gruner saw they wanted peace. Gruner killed them only to show himself as powerful, and now Gruner had realized his mistake, so he surrendered to the creature. Soon, they killed him. Then David locks himself inside the lighthouse. Time passes. A year later, a government officer finally arrives on the island with a new weather officer. Now, the new government officer had weather monitoring duty on this island. When Captain asks David about previous officer, David repeats the officer went toward water and never returned. Weather officer thinks David is Gruner too. David didn't clarify either. He slipped onto the balcony and stood there, silent, because now he, like Gruner, no longer wanted to leave the island. Meanwhile, Daenerys was also happy with her family. They no longer feared someone like Gruner. Now they could live freely on the island and at sea. And with that, the story ends. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel.